Yeah. Okay, so the purpose of the Shiur today is to discuss. So we're raffling off by the Magen David dinner that I'll go and clean somebody's house for a couple of hours, or I'll give them a shiur, So the question is like this. They can do both. So the question is like this. Unfortunately, or fortunately, many women are scared of Pesach and the men are scared because the ladies are scared, and the ladies scare the men. So because it just seems overwhelming the amount of information that there is to do in order to prepare properly for Pesach and to enjoy the Pesach Seder. And it's very unfortunate because that's not what the spirit of Pesach is. The spirit of Pesach is not in order to come to the holiday of Pesach all wiped out, and you come to the Pesach and that's it, that's it. You don't want to hear anything about it anymore, and that's it. That's not the purpose. I'm here to tell you that that's not the purpose of Pesach. The purpose of Pesach is to enjoy the Chag, believe it or not, to enjoy the Chag and to properly appreciate Chag HaEmunah. Every Chag has its highlight. Pesach is about Emunah. Shavuot is the Torah. Sukkot is the relationship, the love between us and Hashem. But Pesach is about instilling Emunah, belief in Hashem. And in order to do that, how could you do that if you're just like busy all the time? Now, I want to tell you, there is a very important message when we are cleaning for Chametz that we have to have in mind. When everyone cleans for Chametz, men and women, what we have to have in mind. But there's also the Torah perspective on how much there is to clean, and then about what the night of Pesach is about. So I'm going to speak the first part about what the obligation is, and then a little bit more about what we should be thinking about on the night of Pesach. Good? Sounds good? Okay. Now, first thing is the following. Just before who is this Chametz? Who is this guy, Chametz? Chametz, he comes in the form of Cheerios. Obviously, the inventors of Cheerios knew that it was a very potent tool to torture those Jewish houses that have little children, that make sure that Cheerios gets into every single little piece of something. Any nook and cranny. Yeah. So, but Chametz represents the Yetzer Hara. Chametz represents the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, because the evil inclination is when it's left to be dormant, it rises. In Judaism, either you go up or you go down. You don't stay the same. You're never the same in Judaism. Either you rise or you go down. And that's the way Chametz, you leave it like that, it's gonna fester. And our job is to get rid of the Chametz, and on Pesach we get rid of our Seor Sheba'isa, it's called. The sourdough, the yeast that's going to make it rise. And we have to eradicate the Chametz. That's the Chachamim of Kabbalah, the Chachmei Kabbalah say that a very deep thing. Rav Yitzchak Isaac Haver, who was one of the first Ashkenazi Mekubalim, and he writes, he was one of the students of the Gaon, Mivilna, and he writes that the reason why we eat matzah on Pesach, listen to this, is because the matzah is void of any rising, and according to him, matzah doesn't fill someone. It just leaves a rock in your stomach, but it doesn't satiate you. It doesn't satiate. Maybe it puts a rock there and for a little bit, but it's not really satiating. In order to teach us that on Pesach, we live on a different realm, a different sphere. On bread alone, a person doesn't live. A person lives on spirituality. And that's what Pesach is about. So you're hungry on Pesach, kind of the point, that you're living on spirituality with Hashem. Interesting. Now, I don't know if the Pesach Hotel subscribe to that, because they have a whole, they have definitely, the way that they make sushi, because they don't eat rice, is that they have quinoa to make the sushi. Well, for Sfaradim it's for sure kosher for Passover. For Ashkenazim, many hold it is, and some hold it's not. I think in the Shiur booklet this year they said, ask your rabbi.
Yes.
For us, it's not a question. For Sfaradim, we're allowed to have quinoa, as long as it comes with a kosher hefsher. Right? Regarding kitniyot, every family has their different custom. But for Moroccans, the general consensus is rice is not permitted. Yeah. And some have the custom of chickpeas, some have the custom of dry beans, some have the custom. Everyone has a different custom. So I'm not going to get into that. Whatever your family custom, whatever your parents do, that's what you follow. But rice is pretty universal by Moroccans not to, and by certain...
Unless you married an Iraqi.
Then you're allowed to have rice, no problem. Or an Egyptian, then you're allowed to have rice. You know, when I was a rabbi in Los Angeles, by the Persian community, if you take away rice from them, I mean, that's it, because they don't even eat bread or matzah is hardly... But yes, rice is what it is. Rice and spoons instead of knives. And cucumbers are for dessert. Yep. 3 things you want to know about Persian? There you go. Now, you know, the Mishnah in I tell this to my wife, and she discredits me on this, but the Mishnah in Masechet Pesachim, the first Mishnah, the Gemara that tells us what you're supposed to do on the night before B'dikat Chametz. Now, I'm not coming to discourage any extra cleaning you want to do, and if you know, I don't want to discourage any of that. But on the other hand, I want to learn what is strict halakha, what is stringency, and what's spring cleaning. If you want to do spring cleaning, from what I understand, Canada is still a free country, and there's no problem. Democratic, you could do spring cleaning if you want, and nobody's going to arrest you. But just realize don't blame it on Pesach. Spring cleaning, and there's Pesach, there's extra stringencies, and there's what you're supposed to do according to the strict halakha. Okay, so the Mishnah, basically in the time of the Gemara, they used to have like one apartment, and that one apartment or one room, they would have a dirt floor, they would have a couple of beds, and that's how they lived. So they wouldn't clean for a whole month for Pesach. They would basically the night of B'dikat Chametz. The night of B'dikat Chametz, that means it's pretty last minute, isn't it? They would look around and they would search for Chametz to see if there's any Chametz, and that's how they would clean during B'dikat Chametz. Our B'dikat Chametz, oy vavoy, is not that way. Truth is, our B'dikat Chametz is kind of a joke. The husband going around, okay, is this clean? What does he know? Clean, not clean. He's going around. What do you think he is? He's walking around in the house. Oh, let's check over here. And the wife saying, I checked that 10 times already. What are you going to find if I clean that? So really, one of the great rabbis, his name was Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, said that the reason why we do B'dikat Chametz nowadays is not to check for Chametz. We're checking that we checked. That's basically what B'dikat Chametz. That's why B'dikat Chametz could take 20 minutes even, when in the time of the Gemara it took a couple hours, because that was their original cleaning. That was their cleaning. In our times, we are ready to more, and partly because we have bigger houses, and we have more nooks and crannies, and we have much more stuff than they did. We have much more stuff. I mean, they didn't have garage sales in those days the way that we have now. They don't have like the amount of they didn't have China to be able to produce all of the gadgets that we have. So it's a different era. And what happened is that it spiraled out of control, that people started cleaning more and more and more and more. So the halacha is like this. The bare bone halacha is like this. On Pesach, one is not allowed to own any chametz. Not only he's not allowed to eat any chametz, one is not allowed to own chametz. That means even if he's going to be away in Florida, but a person owns his whiskey at home, he violates Pesach. Bal yira'eh, bal yimateh. Person is not supposed to see or know about any chametz. What does he do? He has to get rid of it. Or if he sells it to a non-Jew, that's another way of getting rid of it. But he's not allowed to own any chametz. Not only that, he has a business that sells, that he has to sell his business. I know owners of big companies, big food chains, so they don't own it during that period. And it's not simple how it's done, but that's basically what has to happen during Pesach, that they can't own their chametz and they can't profit from the business that is chametz based. Now, let's say somebody on Pesach comes in and he owns the chametz. So there's a process after the checking of the chametz that one says, Kol hamira diika birshuti di hazite bilo hazita. Any chametz that I thought you should say it in English or French, it's in the Sidurim. Any chametz that is in my possession, whether I saw it or that I didn't see, I nullify and I consider it like dust of the earth. So then that's everyone should say it. Everyone should say it, and if your husband says it, you have to listen to him saying it, and you have to have in mind as well. Any chametz that you find, for you, it should be like dust of the earth. That means that on Pesach, if you find a piece of cake, you nullified it already. It's not yours. Right? You nullified it, it's not yours. Or it's part of the sale. If you sold your chametz, you didn't sell your chametz. It's not yours. You nullified it. But, why do we do bedikat chametz then? Why do we have to check for chametz? Even if you find something, it's not yours. You've nullified it in your mind. The reason why we do bedikat chametz is because if you find a piece of cake, you might come to eat it. You might come to eat it. Why not? You might forget it's Pesach. You're going to see a biscuit. You might pop it in your mouth. There's a Cheerios. You're a little hungry. Very common. You're not thinking. You have a million things that you're doing. You see, it's called in the Gemara's language a gluska yafe, a nice piece of chametz. A nice piece of chametz, you might come to think, you might come to eat it. Okay, this is very important. What does this mean? That means that crumbs, you're not usually going to come to eat. So therefore, the law is, crumbs are automatically nullified. Okay, crumbs are not what you have to be looking for on Pesach. Now, the last I checked, I'm not called a Reform rabbi. I have to double check in my account. But the crumbs are not chametz, which means that you don't have to open up. If crumbs were chametz, in my house, I would have to check the 1,000 books I have. I'd have to go book page by page. And there are some opinions that hold that you do have to do that. But the normative halacha, Rav Ovadia Yosef, Rav Ben Zion Abba Shaul, most Sephardic poskim say you don't have to check every single one of your books. So, because crumbs are not chametz, the crumbs that are on the floor are not chametz, the crumbs that you're going to find maybe behind the closet that you have a crumb there. Why? Because even if you own it, you nullified it. For you, it's like dust of the earth. What are we worried about? You might come to eat it. A crumb, you're not going to come to eat. So what do you have to look for? You have to look for a piece of chametz that you might come to eat. Like a wafer, like this. Or like a Cheerios. Or like crumbs that might end up in your food. So those are three things. Either a piece of food that you might eat. Two things. A piece of food that you might eat, or crumbs that might fall into your food. So, if that's the case, you have to be careful around the kitchen area, or let's say birkat hamazon that you're going to bring to the table, because those have crumbs in it, because they might fall in. Or places where, let's say, people in Math, and I got like a lot of questions this year about how do you check for toys, kids' toys. So all you have to do is make sure that there's no Cheerios around there or whatever else. You don't have to look for crumbs. You don't have to go for the crumbs of every place, because the crumbs are batel. They're nullified. Now, especially if you're going to use cleaning detergent on there, then you're also going to make it not considered food. The law is that something's only considered food if it's edible. If it's non-edible, it's not called food. What does that mean? That let's say you have a piece of non-kosher piece of pig, a piece of bacon. Let's say there is. Let's say there's a piece of pig that you're going to take this piece of pig, you're going to pour there, and then you're going to pour a bunch of detergent. I'm not talking about poisonous detergent, edible detergent. Yeah, let's say dishwashing soap. Let's say dishwashing soap or something that makes it taste totally disgusting and bad. That piece of pig is not forbidden to eat anymore because it's not called food. The same thing, if I take chametz and I have all types of cleaning material on it, it's not called chametz anymore. It's not called food. Okay, so it's not called food. It's garbage. It's garbage. You don't, even if you can't do it by very interesting. By my car, the amount of chametz that ends up in the nooks and crannies is unbelievable. And sometimes it's in the corner. I can't reach. I see the chametz and I can't get it out. What am I supposed to do? Common question. Well, let's say you see it deep inside. So if you spray it, you nullify it. It's not a problem. If you don't think it's ever going to get out, so that's fine. So Pesach is really about being smart and knowing where to find the chametz, because it's the Yetzer Hara. It hangs around in corners that you wouldn't imagine. So let me give you a couple of, and then I photocopied this list. This list was written by students of a very big tzaddik. His name is Rav Scheinberg. Did you ever hear of Rav Scheinberg? He used to wear a lot of talit.
Yeah.
He used to wear a lot of talit. He came once in a while to Toronto to visit. He died like a couple of years ago. He was like 101 when he died. He was originally from New York. Yeah, he was a special tzaddik, and he lived in Israel for most of his life, but he's originally from New York. Yeah, I don't know if you read the book All for the Boss. You know, all of the boss. So his students go through list by list. He was very adamant that it's not fair that women go overboard and clean much more than they have to clean. And he goes, and you could take this home, and you could see whatever, he goes through the, I think some of them are missing pages. I don't know. How many pages do you have? 3. Let me just see it. Yeah. Okay, fine. And then he goes to, yeah, I think this is the one. Okay, you got the good one. Yeah, so, and he discusses the different, different ways how to clean different areas. So I just want, as a general rule, from the time that he wrote this time now, and our houses, let's think practically. The whole house. Let's start with the top floor. I'll say the main floor. So let's say you have a dining room, a kitchen. So the kitchen, obviously, that's where most of the time has to be spent, right? A kitchen, you have a lot of chametz there all year, so you have to kosher the kitchen. I'm not going to speak about kosher in the kitchen. I would take a whole shiur in itself, but the kitchen has to be kosher. And then you have to, but you have to make sure that any place where there might be crumbs of chametz that fall into the food, you got to make sure that you get rid of that, and that could take a lot of effort. But as long as you know that there's no crumbs that could fall into the food, or there's no like pieces of cake that are lying around the kitchen, you're okay. Now, do you have to paint the walls? Obvious, according to what we're saying, I think it's self-understood that there's no halakha of painting of the walls. If people have that custom from Morocco, that's a great thing to keep up. It's not that it's called a halachically based that if you don't do it, you're eating chametz on Pesach, right? It's a custom of extra cleaning and extra careful. I guess they had some absorptions of chametz on the wall, and I don't think that we have that at least in my house.
What do you mean absorption of what?
I don't know. It could be that in Morocco, in the houses, they had so much steam and things like that. Eventually, grime would gather on the stone walls.
The wall wasn't just behind the green. Yeah.
Okay, so it could be because it was a good time to paint also. I don't know. I don't know. No, I don't make light of any of these minhagim because Kol Yisrael Kedoshim Hem. Yisrael are Kedoshim Hem. whatever custom that you have to uphold, it's obviously an important thing. It brings a lot of yiras shamayim. I'm not here to diminish any custom whatsoever, but I am here to say because if a person's going to get so overwhelmed that they have to paint the houses and they forget to clean the Cheerios, so that's not what should be done. That's not what should be done. So there has to be a
But if the paint is going to fall on the Cheerios, so then you cannot eat the Cheerios.
What? You're right. If that's the case, if the paint is going to fall on the Cheerios, then you don't have a problem anyways.
You know, Rabbi Benayon, God bless him, he came home one day to bring something to Jack, because we were learning with him.
Right.
And he found Jack and I on the floor with knives, doing
scraping between the balatos.
No, between the wood.
Between the wood.
So he said, Dr. Shehin, I said, and he said, look what he's doing to me. You know, we were like,
right.
He said to him, if the dog can't eat it, how can he eat it? The dog would have to scrape it,
right.
pick it up, and then maybe.
Right. You don't, all of that. So obviously the scraping in between the wood, as long as you make sure it's not crumbs that are edible that are going to end up in your food, you're okay. You're okay. So you might be owning a crumb somewhere in there. You nullified it. It's considered dust of the earth for you. Now, if you find crumbs, you get rid of them during B'dikat Chametz. But you don't have to look for them. You don't have to look for them. Okay, that's a big difference. If you find crumbs, you get rid of them. But you don't have to look for crumbs. So let's think about so the kitchen obviously is the most challenging. But there's ducts. There's ducts. Air vents. I have tons of chametz in those ducts. And what happens? Let's say let's say somebody never uses the duct for heating, or let's say it's different heating elements, and when it comes to Pesach time, it becomes a little bit warmer. So he turns on the air conditioner. I heard this story before, but then Cheerios start popping up all over the place. The person says, "What's going on?" He doesn't. What? That's what I heard that happen. The person said, "Turn on the air conditioner, honey." Okay, so they checked the whole house for 1,000,000 hours, but they forgot that the air conditioner has a bunch of things stuck inside. So you got to know where the chametz is, right? The chametz is not in between the cracks, right? The chametz is in the ducts. The chametz is a lot in the keyboards. The keyboards you'll find a lot of chametz there. The chametz is in vacuum bags. I'm sure you're aware of that by now. Vacuum bags, because you own them, even though you're not going to eat it. If you have a nice piece of chametz there, so now. You're right that you say bitul and you nullify it, but sometimes it's still edible, and let's say you're throwing out your chametz. Maybe, I don't know. I think you should get rid of yeah, but I don't. Kids' school bags,
lunch bags.
Kids' school bags, they have kids' school bags, all of those. These are all good ideas. You just have to have your ideas where your chametz could lie, because there's so many years where we put in so much effort for everything, and then on Pesach we're like, what happened? We were going on a trip, we take the school bag, and we forgot to check the diaper bag that we take usually in the car. Then in there we have some emergency granola bars or something like that in it. Sometimes, you're checking for crumbs and you forget about the main thing. You could try as hard as you want. Sometimes there could be slip-ups. Let me tell you what happened last year in our house. Can't believe a year passed by already. I get a phone call, or actually I think I was home, and my wife turned white. I said, "Why was that? Why did you turn white?" Well, she says, "I just realized that this spray cooking oil that you bought is not kosher for Pesach, and I cooked all of our Pesach food with it." So I said, "Is that so?" I looked at it. I do a lot of the shopping. I saw that it was in the Pesach section, but I bought it, but it wasn't kosher Pesach. So I didn't panic, me with my halachic, loopholes or whatever else. I said, listen, it's probably only oil, and there's nothing else, and it's probably they're in kosher for Pesach. So I called the head of the OU. His son used to learn in the Kol by us, Juravel. He's the head program of the OU. He says he thinks it's fine. I told my wife I think it's fine. No question. 5 minutes later, he texts me back, and he tells me, actually, It could very well be that in the place where they have the oil, they cake it with flour beforehand. So he says, call this and this rabbi. I got to this rabbi, and I sent the phone with him. He says, he can't guarantee that it's kosher for Pesach. So it could have been nullified, but we're not going to touch that food. So we froze it all, and we had a lot of food the rest of the year, and we started our shopping over again. So, a couple days before Pesach. Baruch Hashem, she started a couple days before, and we had food for Sukkot, and we had food for Rosh Hashanah, we had food. So
this is allowed. So now your food is in the freezer.
Well, okay, it wasn't real chametz, then I sold it, yeah.
And you sold it. So that means that this mufleta that I buy ahead of time, and I
mentioned already that the sale of a chametz sale is a legally binding sale. We do it ourselves. His name is Ronaldo from Kehila Center. I'm sure you know him. He's a very, you know Ronaldo very well. He's a very rich, he's a very important person for the time of Pesach. He owns $500,000 at least of chametz. He doesn't own it. He only gave a down payment towards it. And Rabbi Malayov is usually his guarantor. And in case he wants to finalize his own, he owns it, and he gave a down payment towards it. He could really bring evaluators. He wants to invest in chametz, and he'll pay us the money, and we agree to sell him if he pays us the price. I mean, he'll have to pay the price. It's not a funny sale. It will uphold in the court of law. It's Ontario binding, and it's a good sale. And even if you make mufleta beforehand, and you sell it, it is fine. It is fine. No problem. It's not a problem. Not a problem. I'm not. Yes.
So, my husband bought me a glass stove, and last year when I read in the book, it said just not to put the pot anywhere except on where you burn it. So you burn it for 10 minutes.
Yes.
Okay, so don't put a pot anywhere else. This year it says cover the part because it's the glass pot.
Mm-hmm.
But with what they didn't say.
Foil, yeah, aluminum foil.
No.
No?
No, foil is metal.
And the 3 times hot water doesn't work?
I think I use foil. Aluminum with my glass tops. I use aluminum foil. I don't know.
Induction stove or it's flat start? Induction, and when you put the pot on it, heats up.
Yeah. No. But on the thing itself, you don't have to kosher it on the induction. But on around it, you should. No. But you should put aluminum foil around, and just the induction bit you keep open.
But it is glass. Actually, they say glass.
Glass doesn't absorb, but I don't know how much glass is mixed in over there and how much ceramic. It's very, because it would crack otherwise. So that's why it's a little bit of a topic.
Just make sure your pot doesn't touch the other place, just not directly. And that's what I
Right, because because as long as it doesn't touch the other place, it's okay. But let's say things fall, just for extra assurance, you put aluminum foil around. But if you don't put the aluminum foil, it's also okay. But it's better to put the aluminum foil. The custom is to put the aluminum foil. Okay, so let's continue a little bit more. So that's the kitchen. What about the dining room? For the dining room, you have to check in between the sofa pillows. That's where you're going to have the most chametz. Because, well, sure, sometimes people brought a piece of, the kid's stash or something like that. Once you have kids, you have to check all over the house. Once you have kids in the house, grandkids in the house, that's it. You're in trouble. Yeah. And so you have to check. But once again, for little crumbs that you don't drive yourself crazy, you look for a piece of food that a person might stick in it. So it doesn't have to take hours and hours. There's no reason to scrape the different sides of the table all around as long as you got rid of edible chametz that's around there. I always have this disagreement with my wife every single year. I tell her that I could kosher the house in 5 hours. I used to say 4 hours. I bumped it up to 5 hours. And at this point, she vehemently disagrees. So we do it her way. But honestly, if you go around and you're looking only for big pieces of food, it really has to take, besides the kitchen, it really has to take
5 hours. aside.
No, I think I could do it with the kitchen also, but I'm just saying, I think I can do it with the kitchen also, but I'm not that big of a chutzpan to say, you know.
The kitchen
I know my limit. The kitchen alone, you have to do the fridge well, you have to, so, I don't know.
You know those crumbs you said might fall? That's what the kitchen is full of.
Right.
Everything has to be taken out.
Yeah. Kitchen is a little bit more of a thing. The bedrooms as well. People eat in their bedrooms. So where are you going to find the piece of cake? You look in the drawers. You do well, and that's it. Do you have to take apart the bed? Yeah. You don't have to take apart the bed.
My daughter throw cookies.
Okay, but you look. I'm sorry.
In Morocco, every year, the mattress guy would come, tear up the mattress,
Right.
Wash the wool.
cut the wool in the town,
Right.
and redo another fabric.
Right.
Every year.
That's called Passover. That's called Passover cleaning, though.
And you cover.
Right, and that's called Passover cleaning, but that's called spring cleaning. But but you're not gonna have chametz that's in the fluff. You're not gonna.
You knew what happened in my grandfather's
That's
house.
right.
They would sand their dining room table, sand it,
Right.
and then throw in dynamite and
No.
Sulfur, maybe. I don't know.
I'm getting the guy to spend my day.
Cyanide on top, and wait, so now you think it's kosher, no?
It's poison. Cyanide is poison.
They use that thing anyway, and then they would wrap it, take it out of the house, and then bring the new table in.
So that.
Exactly.
So I think
I said to my mother, "Mommy, for what?" She goes, "C'était Pesach, and we didn't want anything that was a possible something to stay in the premises."
Right. So I hope I didn't weaken anybody's resolve to do their custom of their parents. You definitely should uphold that. But at the end of the day, you have to know what is considered the strict letter of the law. Let's think about what a person should be thinking about. Something like cup, please. Freedom from slavery. But a little, yeah. Thank you so much.
Redemption.
Now, I just saw I was learning a little bit more through the Haggadah today. And I came across one message that keeps on repeating itself. If you notice, the night of Pesach is basically the night of, it's like a little bit of a Hollywood scene. A little bit like a Hollywood scene. When my parents would come to our house in Los Angeles for Pesach night, they would see all the different skits and all of the different plays that we do for the kids during Pesach night. They would say, okay, because you're in Hollywood, in Los Angeles, you got to do the movie thing. But the truth is, the night of Pesach is all acting. We think about it. We have all of these props. What are our props? Wine, matzah, charoset. We lean.